This is part 2 of 2 preliminary short takes that we need to do as we prepare for a biblical worldview perspective on gender. In part 1, we saw that in its early days, Christianity was supremely countercultural, deemed by its critics as subversive. This was especially true in regard to 2 realms: the dignity that Christianity placed on all people regardless of class, and the sexual morality of the followers of Jesus. The gospel changed the way that people identified themselves and others, and so how they related to one another. And then we did an ultra-brief review of the history of belief, dividing it into 4 epochs. The first, and by far longest, spanning millennia, was a time when people could not believe in God, or gods and goddesses. This was followed by a much shorter time when people could believe in God, but a door was open to unbelief. Then came an even shorter time when people could not believe in God and suffer no negative fallout from their neighbors and peers. With the triumph of the secular, we are rapidly moving to the place where people cannot believe in God. Faith is coming to be regarded by so-called hard-headed realists as dangerous, holding humanity back from the rational enlightenment that it needs to achieve its potential. So let's continue now with part 2. For most of history, people have regarded nature and morality as a unified reality. That's changed. Today, reality is split into 2 realms: the material, physical realm of facts, and the mental realm of feelings and preferences. That split makes 2 kinds of knowledge: scientific knowledge and moral knowledge. Now, most think a reliable knowledge of facts is only possible for the material realm, what can be tested in a laboratory, while morality consists of merely personal feelings and preferences. It doesn't qualify as objective truth. Theologian and philosopher Francis Schaeffer illustrated that by a 2-story building. The lower story, he said, is empirical science, considered to be objectively true and testable. This is where we find things that everyone is expected to accept. But the upper story is morality and theology, which is private, subjective, relative. It's where we hear people say, well, that's your truth, but it's not my truth. Some refer to this 2-story structure as the fact-value split. Today, these 2 traditions are referred to as modernism and postmodernism. Modernists live in the lower story and claim that it's the only story. That's where we find facts, science. If you can't back up your values or beliefs with facts and science, they're of no importance. They're purely subjective opinion and really a mental fiction. Postmodernists live in the upper story, claiming that facts and science are just mental constructs. One's subjective opinions, even one's fantasies, have more importance than facts and science, even when they contradict science, because what's important isn't facts, but the value that we assign them. I share all of that as preparation for a biblical worldview on gender, for important perspective as we engage those from a secular worldview. Their categories for discussing this subject are different from those who consider the Bible as authoritative. In issues of morality, we ask, what's the right way to treat people? Our answer depends on what we think people are, what it means to be human. The key to understanding the controversial issues of our day is that the concept of what it means to be a human being has been fragmented into Schaeffer's upper and lower stories. Now, this point is critical to understand. The postmodern secularist assumes a split, a separation between body and person. The body, biology, is in the fact realm of empirical science, the lower story, while the person, or identity, is in the values realm of rights, the upper story. This has created a fractured, fragmented view of human beings in which the body is regarded as separate from the authentic self. A person can claim to have whatever identity they choose apart, distinct even from their biology. So the sex of a body may be fixed as male or female, but gender is malleable, a flexible term that you can pour whatever meaning you want into it. That allows postmodern secularists to speak of being gender fluid. So fluid has gender become that on some campuses you have to ask people what pronouns they want to be referred to by today, since they may be different from yesterday. Now, it's important to set down the fact that it wasn't until a few years ago that gender was detached from biology. Global history has always connected the two. Even in the ancient world, from east to west, while there have always been those few exceptions who cross-dressed or took on roles assigned by their culture as belonging to the other sex, what they did was always regarded as unusual and contrary to their actual gender. It was never regarded as normal. Even in our era, until just a few years ago, transgenderism was regarded as delusional, a psychosis called gender dysphoria, a condition to be treated. Today, it's achieved a legal and increasingly applauded status to live in the irrational state of claiming to be something one is not. The right to self-identify as whatever one desires is now regarded as a human right. The Bible presents human beings not just as persons in bodies. We are souls and spirits with bodies. God created us to be embodied souls. Human and person aren't separate things. They are eternally united. Identity isn't something that we manufacture. It derives from who and what God says we are. Now, in the next short take, we'll look to the Bible to set a biblical worldview on gender.